Welcome to the wonderfully wacky world of bizarre phobias. From the ordinary to the downright peculiar, we're diving headfirst into the quirkiest fears that'll leave you scratching your head and wondering, really people? Peanut butter? But that's just the tip of the bizarre phobia iceberg, as we will delve into the realm of the most outlandish fears known to humanity. Genophobia, fear of knees. Alright folks, let's dive into a quirky phobia. Genophobia. Sounds fancy, right? Well, it's all about the fear of knees. Yep, those innocent joints that help us walk, dance, and bend like nobody's business. Now, picture this. Genophobics get the heebie-jeebies just by looking at their knees. Knees in shorts, knees in skirts, you name it. It's not like knees are plotting world domination, they're just hanging out, doing their knee thing. But for genophiles, it's a whole different story. So, why the knee-jerk fear? It could be rooted in a not-so-fun childhood memory or some traumatic event. Maybe they watched too many knee wrestling competitions as kids. Who knows? But what we do know is that genophobia is as real as any other fear. And for those who have it, knee-exposing situations can be a real knee shaker. Turophobia, fear of cheese. Cheese, glorious cheese. It's the creamy, dreamy delight that makes pizzas perfect and elevates pasta to another level. But imagine a world where this dairy wonder sends you into a full-blown panic. Welcome to the quirky realms of turophobia, the fear of cheese. Now, for most of us, cheese is the stuff of dreams. But for those dealing with turophobia, it's more like a cheese-filled nightmare. The taste, texture, or even the mere whiff of cheese can set off their anxiety alarms. Why the cheese fright? Well, it could be tied to a cheese-related trauma from the past. Maybe a cheese avalanche in a sandwich, or an unsettling cheese fondue incident. For them, cheese isn't just food. It's like a cheesy horror movie waiting to unfold. If you know someone who avoids cheese like it's a plague, cut them some slack. They're not just being picky eaters, they might be wrestling with turophobia, or even the cheesiest of jokes won't bring a smile. Almophobia. Let's delve into the quirky realm of almophobia, the fear of belly buttons. Now, most of us see belly buttons as these harmless little navel dimples. But for those with almophobia, they're like tiny craters of terror. So what's the belly button fright all about? Well, it could be the thought of touching or even looking at a belly button that sends their anxiety soaring.
It was already out. And I was like, oh, Chloe, look at this. She's like, oh, absolutely not. Just my belly button. She was like, I have a phobia. And I was like, oh, sorry, I don't know.
Maybe they believe there's something lurking in there, waiting to jump out. So next time you spot someone shying away from crop tops or avoiding belly button discussions like the plague, remember, they're not just being peculiar. They might be grappling with almophobia, or even the tiniest navel becomes a source of unease.
I started shaking like gag and just disgusting. That's so gross.
Ochiophobia, fear of home surroundings. Home sweet home, right? Well, not for the brave souls dealing with ochiophobia. For them, being in their cozy abode can be a bit like stepping into a haunted house. You see, it's not the home itself that scares them, it's the surroundings. The walls seem to close in, the furniture feels like it's creeping closer. And don't even get started on clutter. It's like an army of chaos waiting to attack. Sometimes it's not even about the physical space. It's the concept of a home that spooks them. They might dream of living a nomadic life, never settling down. So the next time you meet someone who's always on the move, constantly rearranging their furniture, or seems downright allergic to clutter, they might just be dealing with a little ochiophobia, the fear of home surroundings. Xanophobia, fear of the color yellow. Xanophobia, the fear of the color yellow. Now you might think, yellow? That's like the happiest color, right? Well, not for folks dealing with this quirky phobia. Imagine walking into a room filled with sunshine yellow walls, and instead of feeling all warm and fuzzy, you're hit with an overwhelming sense of fear and discomfort. That's what xanophobics go through. But here's the deal, phobias can be pretty irrational. So, while yellow might make most of us think of sunshine and daffodils, for xenophobics, it's a bit like confronting their arch nemesis. If you see someone avoiding all things yellow, cut them some slack. They just want to live in their own yellow-free zone. Chromatophobia. Fear of money. Money, the stuff dreams are made of, right? Well, not for our friends with chromatophobia. They're the ones who get the heebie-jeebies just by looking at a pile of cash. Yes, you heard that right. They fear the green stuff. Now, you might wonder why on earth someone would be scared of something most people would gladly swim in. Well, the reasons are as varied as the colors of money. Some chromatophobics are afraid of the power that money wields, while others just can't shake the idea that it's a breeding ground for germs, which, to be fair, isn't entirely wrong. Someone eyeing their wallet like it's a live grenade, remember, they might just be dealing with chromatophobia, the fear of money.
$5 for me.
It's time for today's open discussion. You know those pictures of lotus seed pods or honeycombs that float around the internet? Most people find them intriguing or just part of nature's wonders. But for trypophobics, it's like staring into an abyss of horror.
No, I don't like that.
Yeah, no kidding. A simple sponge or a cluster of soap bubbles can make their skin crawl, as if they're watching the scariest movie ever. But you're not alone. Even the famous YouTuber Felix, aka PewDiePie, has trypophobia. Yeah, even he has it. He even made a video about it.
Why? What is with holes? I just hate holes. You gotta get over your phobia, man.
It's not just about saying, ew, that's gross. The fear is visceral. We're talking increased heart rate, nausea, and an intense desire to destroy or get away from the triggering object. There's no logic to it, but the fear is as real as it gets. So while you're marveling at nature's intricate designs, trypophobics are clicking the close tab button faster than you can say, nope. Coulrophobia, fear of clowns. The fear of clowns! Now, most of us see clowns as those fun-loving, big-shoes, red-nosed entertainers who juggle rubber chickens and make balloon animals.
Sorry, son, the dog was rabid, had to put it down.
But not for the coulrophobics out there. They see them as Pennywise. For them, clowns are like the starring act in a horror movie. It's all those exaggerated features, you see? The huge painted-on smiles that never quite reach their eyes. The colorful wigs that seem to have a life of their own. And don't even get us started on those oversized shoes. And the unpredictability. You never know when a clown might pull a rubber chicken out of their sleeve or squirt water from a fake flower. When you're at the circus and you spot someone inching away from the clown in the floppy shoes, give them a nod of understanding. They might just be battling coulrophobia, where the laughter turns into sheer terror. To be honest, clowns sometimes creep me out as well, so I fully understand. Hippotomonstrous quipatelia phobia. Okay, folks, brace yourselves for a real tongue twister. Hippotomonstrous quipetophobia. I give up. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce that. That's right. It's the fear of long words, and it's the ultimate irony, since the word itself is long enough to send shivers down the spine of those who fear it. Now, imagine a world where encountering a word like sesquipedalian or supercalifragilisticexpialidocious makes you want to run for the hills. Well, that's what folks with hippotomonstrous quidapellatophobia go through. These poor souls might avoid reading that thick novel or opt for one-syllable words whenever possible. It's like they've declared war on long words. And the words are winning. But let's keep things short and sweet for them. After all, they're just trying to avoid a mouthful of syllables that make their palms sweat and their hearts race. Acreopatophobia. Now, let's talk about something that's truly nuts. Acreopatophobia, the fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your mouth. Yep, it's a thing. For some folks, peanut butter is more than just a tasty spread. It's a potential sticky trap. They live in constant fear that a spoonful of the creamy stuff will turn into a mouthful of gooey cement, clinging to the roof of their mouth for dear life. Imagine trying to enjoy a good old peanut butter and jelly sandwich while your inner anxiety meter is going haywire. It's like a culinary thriller in your mouth. If you ever meet someone who prefers their peanut butter spread so thin it's practically see-through, or they break into a cold sweat at the thought of PB, you might be dealing with an phobia.
This hardly ever happens.
Before we move any further, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so you can keep watching our amazing content.
Nomophobia. Alright, let's talk about a fear that's right in the palm of your hand. Nomophobia, the fear of being without a mobile phone. In today's digital age, this one's becoming as common as craving your morning coffee. They are those folks who practically have a love affair with their smartphones. The thought of leaving home without their trusty device feels like they're heading into a war zone without armor. They'll check their phone for messages so often, you'd think they're expecting an invite to the coolest party ever. It's not just about FOMO, fear of missing out. It's like a full-blown panic attack waiting to happen if they can't check their Instagram feed or texts every few minutes. Anatophobia. Hold on to your feathers because we're diving into anatophobia, the fear of being watched by a duck. Yes, you heard it right, a duck. Now we all know ducks waddle around ponds, quacking away without a care in the world. But for anatophobics, there's a sneaky suspicion that somewhere, somehow, a duck has its beady eyes on them. Imagine you're sipping your morning coffee, minding your own business, and then it hits you. You look out the window and there's a duck just calmly staring. You think it's judging my coffee choice. Did I put too much sugar in there? It's like an episode of a surreal sitcom. But hey, phobias can be pretty irrational. And for anatophobics, that duck by the pond isn't just a duck, it's a feathery spy. Ablutophobia. Okay, picture this. You're about to step into the shower, and suddenly the idea of water cascading over you feels like the plot of a horror movie. That's the daily reality for folks with ablutophobia, the fear of bathing or washing. For most of us, washing up is just a part of our daily routine, a refreshing start to the day. But for those battling ablutophobia, it's like stepping into a watery battlefield. Even the thought of soap and water can send their heart racing. Now, you might wonder, why the soapy scare? Well, it could be a past water-related trauma, like a wild water park ride gone wrong. Or maybe it's the sensory overload of splashes and suds that sends them into a soapy spiral. Next time you see someone hesitating before a simple hand wash, remember they're not just procrastinating, they might be facing ablutophobia, where water becomes their unexpected nemesis. Pognophobia, fear of beards. Pognophobia, my friend, is a curious thing. It's like having a secret fear of beards. Yep, those luscious facial men's manes that some folks flaunt with pride. Can you imagine feeling a bit panicky when you spot someone with a beard? Well, that's the deal with pognophobia. Now, what brings this fear to the beard-loving table? Well, it could be a not-so-great childhood experience with a bearded Uncle Bob. Or maybe they watched one too many swashbuckling pirate movies, where the bearded buccaneer is the bad guy. Sometimes it's just one of those irrational fears, like fearing that a beard might secretly be a disguise for a supervillain. But hey, let's not make fun of it. Everyone's got their quirks, right? So if you ever meet someone nervously eyeing your fuzz face, remember it might just be a case of pognophobia, the fear of beards in all their hairy glory. Dendrophobia, fear of trees. Dendrophobia, the fear of trees, might sound unusual in a world where nature's beauty is celebrated. But for those with this peculiar phobia, even the sight of a tree can trigger intense anxiety. Trying to take a leisurely walk in a forest, the leaves rustling gently and sunlight dappling the path. It's a serene picture for most, but for dendrophobics, it's like entering a realm of terror. The towering presence of trees, the dense forest canopy. It all feels overwhelmingly intimidating. So, what's the root of this tree terror? It could be a past encounter with a falling branch, concerns about wildlife lurking in the woods, or simply the fear of the unknown within the forest depths. For dendrophobics, even a single tree in an open park can spark discomfort. So the next time you spot someone hesitating near a tree, offer offer a little understanding. They might be dealing with it, where nature's beauty becomes an unwelcome enigma. Decidophobia. Let's talk about decidophobia, the fear of making decisions. Most of us handle choices like picking a restaurant or selecting a movie for the evening without a second thought. But for those dealing with decidophobia, even the simplest decisions can turn into a mental maze. So what's the deal with decision dread? It's often the fear of making the wrong choice that haunts them. It's like they're playing a high-stakes game of choose your own adventure, and every choice feels like it leads to certain doom. When someone is taking an eternity to decide on salad dressing, remember, they're not just being picky. They might be wrestling with decidophobia, or even the smallest choices can feel like life-altering decisions. Allodoxophobia, fear of opinions. Allodoxophobia. Ever heard of it? It's the term for those who are downright terrified of opinions. Yeah, you heard that right. Not spiders or heights, but opinions. It's a real head-scratcher, especially in this age of Twitter tirades and Facebook feuds. Imagine scrolling through your feed, heart pounding, palms sweaty, dreading that someone somewhere might disagree with you. Sounds exhausting, doesn't it? You don't just fear others' views, you're also petrified of sharing your own thoughts. It's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place. Only the rock is your grandmother's political rant, and the hard place is your friend's vegan lifestyle critique. But hey, no judgment. We all have our quirks. Allodoxophobia makes social events a maze and social media a minefield. If diving into a debate feels like swimming with sharks, you might just have allodoxophobia. Porphopyrophobia. Can you believe that for some folks the color purple is downright terrifying? It's called porphyriophobia, and it's as real as your fear of spiders or public speaking. While the rest of us see purple and think of grapes, lavender, or maybe even Prince's iconic tune, these folks are hit with a wave of panic. Now you'd think, it's just a color, what's the big deal? But hey, it's a really big deal for them. Imagine dodging anything purple like it's a landmine, be it clothes, food packaging, or even random decor. You'd have to strategize your life around the color wheel. It's not like they chose this phobia. Most times it could be some ugly childhood memory associated with the color, like maybe a purple monster from a nightmare, or a bad fall in a room with purple walls. I guess you have to be careful when picking a filter for your Insta photo. Maybe go easy on the purple if you don't want to trigger a porphophobic's fight or flight. Selenophobia, fear of the moon. You know how most people look up at the moon and feel all poetic and dreamy? Well, not everyone gets those warm, fuzzy feelings. Some people have selenophobia, which is an intense, irrational fear of the moon. Seriously, even just a glimpse of that glowing orb in the sky can set them off into a full-blown panic attack. It's hard to pin down what exactly freaks them out. Could they associate it with werewolves, eerie stories, or those old sci-fi movies where the moon is always up to no good? Heck, maybe they watched E.T. one too many times and now associate the moon with alien invasions. For them, a moonlit stroll is a no-go, and don't even mention things like lunar eclipses. The moon calendar? They've got it memorized, but not for planning romantic evenings. It's all about knowing when to draw the curtains and hunker down until the so-called beautiful moon is no longer in sight. Linophobia, fear of string. So you know how some people can't stand spiders or snakes? Now imagine having a similar reaction but to something as everyday as string. I'm talking about linophobia, where even a piece of thread could send shivers down your spine. Crazy, right? For these folks, arts and crafts hour is a nightmare scenario. Forget about tying knots or gift wrapping presents. Even the thought of a shoelace coming undone could be enough to induce cold sweats. Yeah, it might sound totally bizarre, but for someone with this phobia, it's a serious issue that can affect daily life in unexpected ways. The root of the fear could be anything. Maybe it's tied to some childhood trauma, like getting tangled up in something. Or maybe it's a sensory issue. The texture of the string itself could trigger feelings of dread. Whatever it is, linophobia makes simple tasks like sewing a button or Even just handling a piece of yarn, an ordeal to be avoided at all costs. Euphobia, fear of good news. You know that rush of joy when you hear good news, like acing a test, getting a job promotion, or finding out your crush likes you back? Well, for people with euphobia, good news feels more like a prelude to the end of the world. No, they're not being pessimistic. They have a genuine heart-racing fear of hearing something positive. I mean, imagine getting the news that you won the lottery, and your first thought is, uh-oh, what's the catch? Or, is the universe setting me up for a colossal disaster? It's not a joy-kill attitude, it's real anxiety. Euphobia isn't about being a buzzkill or a party pooper. These people genuinely feel that a silver lining must have a cloud filled with rain, hail, and maybe even a tornado on the way. Good news? Thanks, but no thanks. Euphobics would rather expect the worst than be caught off guard by a storm that follows a rainbow. So if you've got good news to share, maybe just send them a memo so they can prepare for the end of days in peace. Dinophobia. The dinner table. A place where families and friends come together to eat, laugh, and catch up with each other's lives. Sounds cozy, right? But for some with dinophobia, it's like walking into an anxiety minefield. These folks dread the chit-chat, the small talk, the whole shebang. It's not that they're antisocial. They have an irrational fear of dinner conversations. Imagine eyeing your fork like it's a lifeline and praying that someone brings up a topic so banal that it ends quickly. While the rest of us are sharing food and stories, dinophobics are sweating bullets trying to avoid eye contact and pondering escape routes. The idea of conversing while eating? Total nightmare fuel. You might think this phobia is a bit out there, but let's cut them some slack. Dinner table conversations can get awkward, heavy, or downright heated sometimes. Dinophobics just want to eat their spaghetti in peace, without having to discuss politics, the weather, or Aunt Sally's new boyfriend. Can you blame them? Papophobia, fear of the Pope. Alright, so check this out. Most people see the Pope as this kind old man who's the spiritual leader of millions. He's got the hat, the robe, the whole Vatican City real estate. What's not to love, right? But for papophobics, the mere sight of the Pope makes them uneasy, like they're trapped in a horror movie they can't pause. It might sound super bizarre, but this fear is very real. It could be the Pope's symbolic power, the weight of tradition, or perhaps something else entirely. Imagine watching the news and having to change the channel as soon as the story comes on about the Pope blessing a people. Or picture scrolling through social media and stumbling on a pic of the Pope. You'd have to swipe faster than someone spotting their ex on Tinder. Like any phobia, it's not about logic. It's a gut reaction, pure and simple. Even as the Pope preaches about love and tolerance, papophiles are gripped by their irrational fear that has them saying, "Thanks, but no thanks, Your Holiness." So yeah, while the Pope is busy being a global icon of faith and morality, some folks are just hoping he doesn't show up in their news feed. Pediophobia, fear of dolls. For most kids, dolls are cuddly companions or playtime pals. But for those with pediophobia, dolls are nothing short of small-scale nightmares. We're talking sweaty palms, racing hearts, the whole 9 yards. To them, these unmoving eyes seem to follow you, and their eternal painted-on smiles? Anything but comforting. Whether it's a porcelain doll on grandma's shelf or a baby doll in a store window, these objects trigger genuine fear and anxiety. Could it be all those horror movies with creepy dolls coming to life? Who knows? But one thing's for sure, pedophobics would rather avoid the toy aisle altogether.
Here's Chucky.
Phronomophobia. Okay, so wrap your head around this. Some people are actually scared of thinking. Yeah, you heard me right. Phronomophobia is the fear of engaging in deep thought. And I'm not talking about the dread you might feel when someone asks you to solve complex math problems. No, we're diving into a whole other dimension here. It's an anxiety loop that can really mess with you. Imagine trying to meditate and hitting a wall of dread instead of peace. Or avoiding those late-night thoughts that keep most of us up. Not because they're weird or confusing, but because they're terrifying. Just like any phobia, logic doesn't factor in. You can't just tell someone, "Hey, don't be afraid of thinking, it's natural." That's like telling someone afraid of heights to just chill out on a skyscraper's edge. Crowophobia, fear of dancing. Crowophobia is an aversion to dancing. While most folks can't resist a good beat, crowophobes prefer to stay anchored to the wall, clutching their drinks for dear life. Now, we're not talking about someone who's just a little shy about their dance moves. We're talking about a genuine heart-pounding fear. The sight of people getting their groove on can send chills down their spine, and even the thought of joining in is a total nightmare. A person having crowophobia is fearful and extremely uncomfortable of dancing, and scared of getting excited or overjoyed. A crowophobic person is distressed by any situation, ceremony, or people associated with dance. The person can be upset merely seeing other people dance in front of them. Geniophobia, fear of chins. Geniophobia, folks, is the fear of chins. Yes, you heard that right, chins! It might sound a bit odd at first, but hey, phobias come in all shapes and sizes, right? Picture this, you're at a party having a good time, and suddenly someone with a prominent chin walks in. Your heart starts racing, palms get sweaty, and you're ready to bolt. That's geniophobia in action. People suffering from this phobia get jittery around people with pronounced chins, or even when they see images of well-defined jaws. It's like they're kryptonite, but instead of superheroes, it's chins that send them into a panic. People can have this fear because some people have prominent chins, like having double chins. Most people with this phobia feel obsessed with other people's chins, especially those with imperfect chins. Vestiophobia, fear of clothing. So here's the deal with vests, clothes. For some people, the thought of wearing clothing is, to put it bluntly, a form of torture. No kidding. If you're dealing with vestiophobia, then shirts, pants, dresses, and even socks can make you feel like you're locked in a cage of fabric. It's not that they hate fashion or think they look bad in clothes. Nope. It's a straight-up irrational fear that kicks in the moment they think about getting dressed. Imagine trying to explain that one to your boss, huh? Sorry, can't come in today. My jeans are terrifying me. The whole sensation is like being hugged by an octopus made of anxiety. Maybe it's the texture of certain materials that feels like sandpaper against their skin. Or perhaps it's the constriction, the sensation of being confined or restricted, that sends them spiraling. It's the kind of fear that makes nudist colonies seem like a viable lifestyle option. But let's be real, going all natural 24/7 isn't an option for most of us. So while the rest of us complain about bad hair days or mismatched socks, vestiophobics are dealing with a whole other level of wardrobe malfunction. Octophobia, fear of the figure 8. Oh, the number 8. So symmetrical, so perfectly looped. Mathematicians might see it as a sign of infinity. Racers see it as a track. But for octophobes, it's like staring into an abyss of anxiety. Seriously, this seemingly innocuous number becomes a big time stressor for them. You see an 8 and think, okay, cool, it's just a number. An octophile sees it, and suddenly it's a roller coaster of nerves. For them, it's not just a number or a symbol. It's an embodiment of something much darker. A never-ending loop of doom and gloom. The fact that it resembles the symbol for infinity makes it all the more frightening. Imagine avoiding anything that has an 8 in it. Addresses, phone numbers, even car models. Talk about taking the scenic route to dodge your fears. This phobia might sound like a bit of an overreaction, but hey, fears are rarely rational. So the next time you're enjoying the elegance of an 8, spare a thought for octophobics who are doing their best to look the other way. Allophobia, fear of flutes. For most of us, the sound of a flute might evoke a sense of peace or even a bit of whimsy. But for folks with allophobia, that's a big nope. They're booking it in the opposite direction. Imagine dashing out of a wedding ceremony, a concert, or even a school band recital just because someone started playing the flute. Yeah, talk about inconvenience. This phobia isn't about disliking the music. It's an irrational fear that could get your heart pounding like you're in a horror flick. Imagine feeling like you're in the scariest scene of a movie, but it's just a kiddo playing hot cross buns on their recorder. You might wonder how someone develops a fear of flutes. It's a head scratcher for sure. Maybe it was a traumatic event, or perhaps something less identifiable. It's difficult to pin down. But one thing's for sure, if you invite an allophobic to a concert, make sure there are no flutes on the program. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do like and share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to not miss any of the upcoming amazing videos. Thank you once again.